They said love is fire, beautiful when it warms you, but deadly when it burns. For Edith Sinclair, it had done both, because the man she loved for 10 years was now the man she was divorcing. Part 1. The Divorce Papers. The clock ticked louder than her heartbeat, echoing through the silent house like a countdown to the end of something sacred. Edith Sinclair sat at the edge of the dining table, staring at the crisp white divorce papers spread before her, blank spaces waiting for his signature. Her fingers trembled as she traced the edge of the document, her wedding ring glinting under the pale light. She wasn't trembling because she was scared. She was trembling because she was done. 3 years. 3 long, suffocating years in a marriage that had no warmth, no laughter, no love. Just politeness. Just duty. People said firefighters were brave, that they risked everything to save lives. But no one ever told her what it felt like to be married to one, to spend your nights waiting, wondering if the man you loved would come home or not, only to have him return distant and tired, as if the world outside his fire station mattered more than the one inside his home. Edith once believed love could heal anything. Now she wasn't so sure. She pressed her lips together and whispered to herself, "It's time." She had spent years loving him silently, hoping that someday he'd look at her not as the woman his parents chose for him, but as the woman he wanted. But all that hope burned to ashes the moment she heard the news that her husband, Liam Sinclair, had gotten another woman pregnant. The words had spread like wildfire through the small town. And just like that, everything she'd believed about him, about them, went up in smoke. The news burned her from the inside, every breath tasting like betrayal. She thought she'd cry, but she didn't. There were no tears left. Only emptiness, the kind that comes when the last piece of your heart breaks quietly, without warning. The sound of a key turning in the lock made her freeze. Footsteps followed, heavy, familiar. Then he appeared. Liam Sinclair, tall, broad-shouldered, still in his soot-stained firefighter uniform. His hair was slightly damp, and the faint smell of smoke and ash clung to him like it always did. But this time that scent didn't bring comfort. It brought pain. Edith swallowed hard, steadying herself. He glanced at her, then at the papers on the table. "You're serious about this?" he asked, his voice calm but low, carrying the weight of exhaustion. "Completely," she said. Her voice didn't shake. Not this time. She picked up the pen and pushed it across the table toward him. "Sign the papers, Liam." He didn't move. Just stared at her, his eyes unreadable. Those deep blue eyes she'd once gotten lost in, now cold and distant like winter sky. After a moment, he leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. "I'll sign," he said quietly, "but only on one condition." Edith frowned, caught off guard. "What condition?" He exhaled slowly, his gaze dropping to the floor before meeting hers again. This time softer, almost vulnerable. "Pretend to be my loving wife for 1 more month." Part 2. 1-month deal. Pretend to be my loving wife for 1 more month. Her world stopped. For a second, she wondered if she'd heard wrong. "What?" she whispered. 1 month, he repeated. His voice was steady, but his jaw was tight. "After that, I'll give you your divorce." Edith's heart twisted painfully in her chest. "You're joking." "I'm not," he said firmly. She pushed back her chair, disbelief flooding her. "Liam, this is ridiculous. Why would I do that? We're over." He stood up, towering over her now, his tone calm but sharp. "Because I need you to." Edith blinked, confused. "Need me? For what?" "To make the woman you got pregnant jealous." Liam's expression flickered. Not guilt, but hurt. "It's not what you think." She laughed bitterly. "Oh, really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like what I think." He didn't respond immediately. He just sighed, rubbing his neck, the muscles in his jaw tightening. "The Firefighters Charity Gala is next month," he said finally. "It's the biggest event of the year. Everyone expects us to attend together. The perfect couple, the strong firefighter and his loving wife. If you don't show up with me, it'll destroy everything I've worked for." Edith's heart stung at the irony. He was worried about his image, not their marriage. "So you want me to pretend to love you for your reputation?" she asked bitterly. He hesitated. "You can call it whatever you want. Just 1 month, Edith. Please." The word please hung in the air, heavier than it should have been. She stared at him. This man she'd once believed was her forever. Once she would have done anything for him. But now she just wanted peace. Still, something in his voice, something tired, almost broken, made her hesitate. "Fine," she said finally, her tone cold but trembling slightly. 1 month. But after that we're done. Completely. Liam nodded once. "Deal." That night, when she lay alone in bed, Edith couldn't sleep. Her heart was a battlefield, torn between anger and longing, pain and memory. She remembered the way his laughter used to sound when they first met. The way his eyes lit up when he talked about saving lives. The way she used to wait at the window for the sound of his truck returning home. And now, all that was left were papers waiting to end everything they had once dreamed of. She turned off the lamp, the darkness swallowing her room whole. Her mind replayed his words again and again. "Pretend to be my loving wife for 1 more month." Why would he want that? What was he hiding behind those cold blue eyes? As she drifted into restless sleep, one thought echoed in her mind. If this was the end, then why did it still feel like the beginning of something she didn't understand yet? Because sometimes, even when love dies, its ashes still glow. And maybe, just maybe, those ashes could light a fire again. Edith thought it was a cruel joke. Pretend. After everything. After 3 years of silence, distance, and 1,000 tiny heartbreaks. He wanted her to pretend to love him again. But Liam Sinclair wasn't joking. He leaned against the kitchen counter that night, still in his firefighter uniform, the faint scent of smoke lingering around him. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was calm, too calm for what he was asking. "There's a firefighters' charity gala next month," he explained. "It's important for the department, for the sponsors, for everyone who supports our work. The organizers are expecting us there. Together." Edith folded her arms, disbelief flickering in her eyes. "You mean they're expecting the perfect couple?" Liam's gaze didn't waver. "If you don't go with me, it'll be humiliating. People will talk." She laughed, a cold, bitter laugh. "You care more about your image than our marriage." His jaw tightened, the muscle in his cheek twitching. "You wouldn't understand." "Oh, I wouldn't," she snapped. "Because I wasn't the one running into fires every day. Or because I was just the wife who waited at home, the one you barely looked at." He didn't answer. Just turned away. His hands gripping the edge of the counter. The silence stretched between them like a live wire. Sparking, painful, full of everything they'd left unsaid for too long. That night, Edith sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her wedding photo on the nightstand. 2 smiling strangers on a happy day that had never really been theirs. She should have said no. She wanted to say no. But something inside her, that small, foolish part of her heart that still cared, whispered otherwise. She needed closure. 1 last month to finally bury her decade-long crush. To let go of Liam Sinclair once and for all. So she agreed. The next morning, Edith woke up to the sound of laughter downstairs. Deep, familiar, but startling. For a second she thought she was dreaming. That laugh had once filled their home, echoing through the kitchen over coffee, in the early days when they tried to make their arranged marriage feel like love. But that laughter had died long ago. She slipped out of bed and followed the sound. There he was, Liam Sinclair, standing in the kitchen, sunlight pouring over his uniform. He was flipping pancakes with the same ease he used to handle fire hoses, humming under his breath, and sitting on the counter beside him was a bouquet of lilies, her favorite. Her heart twisted. "What's this?" she asked, her voice cold, cautious. He turned, surprised, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Breakfast. You never eat in the mornings." "That doesn't answer my question," he sighed. We're supposed to look like a happy couple for a month, remember? Happy couples eat breakfast together. Her chest tightened. You didn't have to pretend this early. He looked at her for a long second, then quietly said, "Maybe I'm not pretending." Her breath caught. But before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He grabbed it quickly, his tone shifting. "Yeah, Chief, I'm on my way." She recognized that voice, firm, professional, ready for duty. Without another word, he tossed the dish towel aside, kissed her forehead lightly, a gesture so unexpected that she froze and said, "Don't wait up for me." Then he was gone. Just like always. Hours passed. Edith cleaned, worked, distracted herself, anything to stop thinking about him. But the quiet felt heavier than usual. She wandered into the living room and her eyes fell on a photo, their wedding picture. She looked radiant, full of hope. He looked serious, unreadable. She traced his face with her fingertip, whispering, "Why did you ever agree to marry me?" The answer she'd once thought was simple. Family pressure. Duty. Obligation. But now she wasn't so sure. That evening, rain drummed softly against the windows. Liam came home late. Soaked, exhausted, smelling of smoke. He slumped onto the couch, running a hand through his damp hair. She brought him a towel silently. "Thanks," he murmured, voice rough. "Long day." He gave a tired chuckle. Fire in a warehouse. 2 rescues. 1 kid saved. 1 life lost. Her heart softened despite herself. "I'm sorry." He looked up, his eyes meeting hers, tired but warm. "Don't be. You didn't start the fire." Something in the way he said it, soft, with the ghost of a smile, broke her. She wanted to sit beside him, to touch him, to remind him that he wasn't alone. But she stayed where she was. Distance had become their safety. Until he broke it. "Edith," he said quietly. "Why did you stop talking to me?" Her brows furrowed. "What?" 3 years, he continued. "You lived beside me, slept beside me, but it always felt like you were a million miles away." She stared at him, stunned. "You're asking me that? Liam, you were never here. You were always out there, saving everyone but me." He flinched slightly, as if the words burned. "That's not fair. Neither is loving a man who doesn't even notice you," she snapped, her voice cracking. "I waited, Liam. I waited for you to see me. Not as your duty, not as the wife your parents picked, but as the woman who would have set the world on fire for you." Silence. The kind that cut deeper than any scream. Finally he whispered, "You think I didn't notice you?" Her heart raced. What's that supposed to mean? He looked away, running a hand over his face. "Forget it." "No," she said, stepping closer. "Say it." He sighed, his voice low, almost bitter. "You were never mine to begin with, Edith. You never let me in. Every time I tried to talk, you built a wall higher than the last." Her chest tightened painfully. "Because I was scared, Liam. Scared of being the only one who cared." They stared at each other. 2 broken souls standing in the ruins of what used to be love. He looked away first. "This isn't helping." "Neither is pretending," she whispered. The next day they had to attend a fire station event, a small pre-gala press gathering. The chief wanted Liam's devoted wife beside him for photographs. Edith wore a pale blue dress, her hair tied back neatly. When Liam saw her, his expression faltered, admiration flickering in his eyes before he looked away quickly. "You look nice," he said awkwardly. "You look tired," she replied. They arrived at the event together, smiling for cameras, answering polite questions, pretending to be the perfect couple. But in the middle of it, Edith overheard a voice behind her. "Poor Sarah," one woman whispered. Carrying his baby and watching him parade around with his wife like nothing happened. Edith froze. Her fingers clenched around her clutch. Sarah. The same name again. She turned, and there she was, standing near the refreshments table, talking softly to another firefighter. Sarah. The woman from the rumors. Pretty, fragile-looking, with tearful eyes and a gentle belly curve beneath her dress. Edith's chest felt like it had been ripped open. She stormed toward the exit, the sound of her heels echoing across the hall. "Edith!" Liam called after her, grabbing her arm outside. "Let me go," she hissed, tears burning her eyes. "You said it wasn't what I thought, but there she is, Liam. Pregnant. Watching you like she's the one who belongs beside you." His eyes widened, realization dawning. "Edith, no. It's not." "Don't," she said sharply, pulling away. "I've been humiliated enough." She turned and walked away into the rain, her tears blending with the drops that soaked her face. That night she packed her suitcase. She was done pretending. But before she could close it, the door opened. Liam stood there, soaked to the bone, his breath uneven. "You don't understand." "No," she said coldly. "I understand perfectly." His voice broke. "Please, Edith, just listen." "Why?" "So you can lie again." He stepped closer, desperate now. "She's not." "Don't you dare," she shouted. "You made me play wife for your image while another woman carries your child. You've already burned me once, Liam. I won't let you do it again." Her voice cracked, but her eyes blazed with pain. Liam stared at her, chest rising and falling heavily. His jaw tightened, not in anger but sorrow. Then, in a voice that trembled, he said the words that would change everything. "Sarah isn't pregnant with my child." The suitcase slipped from her hand. "What?" He stepped closer, eyes shining with a truth she hadn't expected. "It's not what you think, Edith. It never was." Part 3. The truth beneath the ashes. They said the worst pain isn't when someone lies to you. It's when you realize you've been living inside your own lie all along. And as Liam's words hung in the air, "Sarah isn't pregnant with my child," Edith felt her entire world tilt on its axis. The storm outside raged, thunder roaring like the chaos inside her heart. She stared at him, her hands trembling, tears threatening to spill but refusing to fall. "Then whose child is it?" she whispered, barely breathing. Liam exhaled slowly, running a hand through his wet hair. "Her husband's. Mark Bennett. He was part of my unit." Edith blinked, confused. "Mark. The one who died in that factory fire 3 months ago," Liam finished quietly. "Sarah was already 3 months pregnant when he died. The guys at the station helped her move, helped her settle. I gave her money when her insurance got delayed. And the gossip started." He looked down, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. "Apparently, kindness doesn't look good on a man who's already misunderstood." Edith's throat tightened. "You mean, all this time you were helping her because she had no one," he said, his voice breaking. "And because I know what it's like to lose someone you love and still have to pretend you're fine." The silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was heavy, full of things left unsaid, of truths that had come too late. Edith sank down onto the bed, her knees weak. "Why didn't you just tell me?" He gave a hollow laugh. "Would you have listened?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. He was right. She wouldn't have. The rumors had been easier to believe than the possibility that he was innocent. Her tears finally came, quiet, painful, unrestrained. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Liam stepped forward, hesitant. "You have nothing to be sorry for." "I do," she said, looking up at him. "I believed everyone but you. I made up a story in my head and punished you for it." He sat beside her, keeping a small distance. "We both made mistakes, Edith. I shut you out thinking I was protecting you from my world. But in the process, I just built walls between us." His words came soft but raw, like embers glowing in the dark. "For 3 years," he continued, "I tried to be what everyone wanted, the perfect husband, the perfect firefighter. But I was never what you needed." She turned to him, her eyes shimmering. "And what did you need, Liam?" He smiled sadly. "You." Her breath caught, a quiet, broken sound. "Then why didn't you ever say it?" He looked down. "Because I thought you didn't want me. You were always polite, quiet, distant. I thought you were enduring the marriage out of duty. Edith shook her head slowly, a tear rolling down her cheek. I was enduring the silence. Not you. For a long moment they just sat there. Two people finally seeing each other clearly after years of blindness. The thunder faded outside, replaced by the soft drumming of rain. Liam reached for her hand gently. Edith, he said, his thumb brushing against her skin. You can still walk away if you want. After tonight, I'll sign the papers. Her heart twisted at the words. That's what she'd wanted, freedom, closure. So why did it suddenly feel like losing him would burn worse than staying? Do you really want me to go? She asked softly. His silence said everything. No, he admitted. But I won't make you stay out of guilt. She looked at him for a long time, her heart pounding like the rain on the roof. And before she could stop herself, she whispered, I never wanted to leave, Liam. I just wanted to be wanted. That broke him. Without thinking, he pulled her into his arms. And for the first time in years, she didn't resist. She melted against him, the scent of smoke and rain surrounding her. His heartbeat thudded against her ear, strong, real, alive. He held her like she was something fragile but precious, something he couldn't lose again. I wanted you every day, he murmured into her hair. I just didn't know how to show it. She looked up, eyes glassy. Then show me now. He kissed her, slow, hesitant at first, then deeper, fiercer, like a dam breaking. It wasn't perfect. It was desperate. It was years of love and regret colliding in one breath. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless, and something had shifted. The walls had fallen. The fire between them had reignited. Days passed, and things began to change. They laughed again, ate breakfast together. Sometimes they argued, but it wasn't cold anymore. It was alive. Still, Edith noticed something different in Liam. A shadow behind his smile. One evening she asked, What's bothering you? He hesitated. It's about the gala next week. She frowned. What about it? He took a deep breath. The department's been reviewing the warehouse fire, the one I told you about. They found out my oxygen line failed midway. I went in anyway, against orders. I saved a kid, but the man I couldn't reach, that was Mark Bennett. Edith's eyes widened. Sarah's husband. He nodded, his jaw tightening. If they find me responsible, I could lose my badge. Her heart sank. Liam. He forced a small smile. That's why the gala matters. It's not just about appearances. It's about proving I'm still worth trusting. I didn't want you to know because I didn't want you to stay out of pity. She reached for his face, her eyes fierce with emotion. You think I'd stay out of pity? Liam, I'm here because I love you. Even after everything. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he smiled, that rare, real smile she hadn't seen in years. I don't deserve you, he said softly. She kissed his forehead. Maybe not. But I'm not leaving this time. A week later at the gala, all eyes turned to them as they walked in. Hand in hand, the perfect couple that had once only been a facade, but was now something real. The photographers flashed, the music swelled, and somewhere in the middle of the chaos, Liam leaned close and whispered, Thank you for lighting my fire again. Edith smiled through tears. No, Liam. You were the fire all along. I just stopped being afraid to burn. And as they danced under the golden lights, the world outside disappeared, leaving only them, the ashes of their past, and the flames of a love reborn. The music slowed, soft and golden, wrapping around them like a memory reborn. Edith felt Liam's hand on her waist. Firm, protective, trembling just slightly, as if he was afraid she'd vanish if he held her too tightly. You look beautiful tonight, he whispered against her ear. She smiled faintly. You've said that before. Maybe, he said, eyes locked on hers. But tonight I finally mean it. Their bodies swayed gently to the rhythm, a dance of rediscovered hearts. For years silence had stood between them, cold, heavy, unspoken. But tonight every glance, every breath, Every heartbeat spoke louder than words. "Liam," she murmured, looking up at him. "What happens after tonight?" He smiled sadly. "You tell me." "I'm tired of being scared," she said softly. "Tired of holding back just because I think you'll stop me halfway." He stopped dancing, still holding her close. "Edith, if I stop you now, it's only because I never want to hurt you again." She took his hand, pressing it against her chest. "You already did. But you also taught me that pain doesn't mean it's over. It just means we still care." His eyes darkened with emotion. "You think we still have a chance?" Her lips trembled. "I think we never really lost it." And then she said the words she had swallowed for years, the confession that had burned quietly in the corners of her heart. "I thought you belonged to someone else. I loved you before you even knew my name, Liam Sinclair. When you walked into my father's house the first time, tall, confident, full of dreams, I thought, that man will never look at me. But you did. And that was enough for me to say yes, even when you didn't." He stared at her, every muscle tense. "You loved me all this time." "I never stopped," she whispered. "Even when I thought you belonged to someone else." Liam's voice was rough when he finally spoke. "You don't know how many times I wanted to tell you that I saw you, that every time you smiled at me across the table, it felt like home. But you kept your heart behind walls I didn't know how to climb." Tears glistened in her eyes. "Then climb now, Liam. I'm done hiding." For a moment, neither of them moved. The world around them, the music, the crowd, the golden lights, faded into silence. Then he pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers. "You're sure?" he whispered. She smiled through tears. "For the first time in my life." His lips met hers, not rushed, not desperate, but full of everything they had never said. It was a kiss that spoke of forgiveness and longing, of broken years mended by truth. And in that moment, they weren't husband and wife trying to pretend anymore. They were two souls finding their way home. Later that night, they drove back in quiet peace. The city lights reflected in the car window, painting their faces with soft gold and silver. Liam reached out, his fingers brushing hers gently. "You're quiet," he said. She smiled. "I'm afraid this is all a dream." He squeezed her hand. "Then don't wake up." When they reached home, rain had started again. Light, whispering rain that smelled like new beginnings. He opened the door for her, an old habit long forgotten. As they stepped inside, the world felt different. Warmer, softer. Edith walked to the living room and looked around. Everything was the same. The couch, the photo frame, the faint scent of smoke, but somehow it felt new, like the ghosts had finally left. Liam joined her quietly. "You know," he said, "I used to stand here after every shift, staring at that photo, wondering when we'd stop being strangers." She looked at him, eyes glistening. "Maybe we just needed to stop pretending first." He smiled, stepping closer. "So what are we now?" Her voice was a whisper. "Real." For a moment they just stood there, inches apart, breathing the same air, hearts sinking to the rhythm of something fragile and beautiful. Liam brushed a loose strand of hair from her face, his touch lingering against her cheek. "I forgot how it felt to touch you like this," he said softly. She looked up, her voice trembling. "Then remember." He laughed quietly, that deep, gentle laugh that once made her fall in love. "You have no idea what you do to me, Edith." Her heart fluttered. "Maybe I do. You just never let me." Their foreheads touched again. His breath warmed her skin as he whispered, "You were always the calm to my chaos. The only fire I couldn't fight." She smiled, tears spilling over. "Then stop fighting, Firefighter." He kissed her hand, slow, reverent. "You have no idea how much I've missed you." "Then make up for the years we lost," she said softly, eyes glimmering like candlelight. He drew her closer, resting his head against her shoulder. "I will. Starting now." And they stood there, wrapped in the quiet hum of rain, hearts finally speaking the same language, love. Over the next few weeks, everything began to change. They cooked together, laughed together, sometimes fought, but it was different now. Their arguments ended with apologies, not silence. With touches, not distance. Liam fixed the old swing in the backyard and painted her favorite corner of the living room. Edith left love notes on his coffee mug before his shifts. Tiny things, but love lives in the tiny things. One evening, as the sun melted behind the horizon, Liam came home with a small velvet box. "Before you panic," he said, smiling nervously. "It's not what you think." She raised a brow. "Oh." He opened it. Inside was a silver ring, simple but elegant. Not new, old, polished, familiar. Her heart skipped. "Liam, that's our wedding ring." He nodded. "You took it off the night you gave me the divorce papers." "Kept it. I told myself I'd return it only when I earned it back." Tears welled in her eyes as he gently slipped it back onto her finger. "Edith Sinclair," he said quietly. "This time no pretending. No conditions. Just us, raw, messy, real. Can we start over?" Her voice broke. "We already have." As the night settled, they stood on the porch, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Edith leaned her head against his shoulder. "You know," she murmured, "maybe we had to break first to learn how to love right." He smiled, kissing her hair. "Maybe fire doesn't just destroy. Maybe it purifies." She looked up at him with a soft smile. "Then we're the ashes that learned how to glow again." He chuckled. "No, sweetheart. We're the fire that never went out." And as their laughter mingled with the sound of rain, the screen would fade to black. Their story no longer one of endings, but of a love that burned brighter after the storm. But what happens when the past refuses to stay buried? When the fire that united them is tested by a truth neither expected? Part 5. The spark before the storm. Peace has a strange way of making people forget that storms always come back. For weeks, Edith and Liam lived in a kind of quiet bliss. Laughter over morning coffee, soft kisses before work, and the comfort of knowing they had finally found their way back to each other. But love, real love, is never without a test. One Friday evening, Liam came home later than usual. Edith was waiting, curled up on the couch, reading. "You're late," she teased softly. He smiled, dropping his keys on the table. "The chief called an emergency meeting." Something in his tone made her look up. "What's wrong?" Liam hesitated, then sighed. "The investigation into the warehouse fire. It's reopening." Her smile faded. "But I thought it was over." "It was," he said quietly, "until someone submitted a new statement, claiming I ignored the safety protocol that night." Her eyes widened. "That's not true." He rubbed his temples. "I know. But the board wants evidence. If they find me guilty, I could lose everything. My badge, my pension, even my name." Edith stood, her heart pounding. Who would say something like that? He looked at her, jaw tense. "Sarah." The name struck like thunder in her chest. "Sarah. But why would she?" "She thinks I let Mark die," he said bitterly. "She's grieving, she wants someone to blame." Edith's lips parted in disbelief. "But she knows you tried to save him." Liam nodded slowly. "Grief doesn't follow logic." That night, silence filled their home again, but this time it wasn't cold. It was heavy, fearful. Edith watched him from across the room. He looked tired, his eyes distant, like a man already preparing for the worst. She walked over, sitting beside him quietly. "We'll fight this," she said firmly. He looked up, surprised. "We?" She smiled faintly. "You don't get to face this alone anymore." His shoulders relaxed slightly. "You really think we can fix it?" "I know we can," she said. "Because this time, I'm not walking away when things get hard." He looked at her for a long moment, then reached out, pulling her into his arms. "God, Edith. I don't deserve you." She rested her head on his chest. "Then spend the rest of your life proving you do." Days passed in anxious rhythm. Meetings, calls, whispers. Edith stood by him through it all. Every late night, every question, every stare that hinted at blame. But even loyalty can be tested by doubt. One afternoon, while cleaning his desk, Edith found an old envelope, sealed with her name written in Liam's handwriting. Curiosity flickered. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a letter. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't tell you the truth face to face. That night at the warehouse I made a choice, one that's haunted me every day since. I didn't ignore protocol, but I did ignore the chief's order to wait for backup. Mark was trapped, and I thought I could save him. I went in anyway. I got the kid out, but I couldn't reach him in time. If I'd waited, maybe neither of us would have made it. I live with that every day, Edith. If I lose my badge, I'll accept it. But if I lose you again, I won't survive that. Her hands shook as she finished reading. He hadn't lied, but he had gone against orders. He had risked his career to save a life, and failed. Tears blurred her vision. He had carried that guilt alone all this time. That night when he returned, she was sitting by the window, the letter in her lap. "Liam," she said quietly, "why didn't you tell me?" He froze. His eyes fell on the paper in her hand. "You found it. Why hide this from me?" she whispered. "I'm your wife." He took a step closer, his voice low. "Because I didn't want you to see me as a failure." She stood, her voice trembling. "You're not a failure, Liam. You're a man who ran into fire when everyone else ran away. You saved a child. That's not failure, that's courage." His voice cracked. "Tell that to Mark's widow." She crossed the distance between them, grabbing his hand. "I will. I'll tell her exactly who you are, a man who would rather burn than stand by and do nothing." He looked at her, eyes glistening. "You'd do that for me." "I'd do anything for you," she whispered. "Just like you always did, even when I didn't see it." He exhaled shakily, resting his forehead against hers. "You're the only light I've ever known, Edith." She smiled softly through tears, then stopped standing in the dark. The next day they went together to meet Sarah. The encounter was tense, full of sorrow and unspoken pain. Sarah's eyes were cold when she saw them. "You shouldn't have come." Edith spoke first. "We're not here to fight, Sarah. We just want the truth." "The truth," Sarah said bitterly. "The truth is my husband is gone because Liam didn't follow orders." Liam stepped forward. "You're right," he said quietly. "I didn't. Because waiting would have meant losing both of us. I thought I could save him. And I failed. Sorry, Sarah. More than you'll ever know." For a long moment Sarah said nothing. Then her expression cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You tried to save him." Liam nodded. "I did." She covered her mouth, sobbing. "They told me you left him." "I never left him," he said softly. "I carried him until I couldn't anymore." Sarah collapsed into tears, and Edith reached out, holding her gently. For the first time there was no hatred, just shared grief. A week later the investigation was closed. Liam was cleared. Sarah withdrew her statement, admitting she had acted out of anger and confusion. When Liam came home with a letter of clearance in his hand, Edith ran to him, tears spilling freely. "It's over," he whispered, holding her tight. "We made it." She smiled through her tears. "No, Liam. We started it." He laughed softly, brushing her hair back. "Started what?" "Our real life," she said. "The one after the fire." He pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "Then let's keep it burning forever." But as the camera pans out, showing them wrapped in each other's arms, the screen fades to black, and a soft sound plays in the background. Phone buzzing on the table. The screen lights up with a message. "Liam, we need to talk. It's about the fire. There's something you don't know." Heath. Part 6. The fire never sleeps. They thought the storm was over. But sometimes when the fire dies down, it only hides beneath the ashes, waiting to rise again. He glanced at the screen and froze. One message. One line that turned his blood cold. Chief. Liam, we need to talk. It's about the fire. There's something you don't know. He stared at the words, a strange dread tightening his chest. Edith noticed the change in his face immediately. What is it? She asked softly. Liam tried to smile. Probably just paperwork. But his voice, it shook. The next morning he drove to the station early, the world outside still half asleep. The chief was waiting in his office, eyes tired, fingers tapping against the desk. Sit down, Sinclair, he said quietly. Liam obeyed, uneasy. What's going on? The chief sighed, rubbing his temples. We got the final forensics report from the warehouse fire. Turns out, the oxygen line that failed wasn't an accident. Liam's breath hitched. What do you mean? I mean it was cut, the chief said, his tone grim. Deliberately. Liam felt the ground shift beneath him. Cut. By who? The chief slid a file across the desk. We don't know yet. But the investigators found fingerprints on the valve. Partial match. Someone from inside the department. Liam's heart pounded. Someone inside. Yes. The chief's gaze hardened. Someone wanted you to fail, Liam. Maybe even die. When he returned home, Edith was waiting. She saw the look in his eyes and knew something was wrong. Liam, she whispered. What happened? He told her everything, the file, the fingerprints, the sabotage. For a moment she just stared at him, stunned. Then her voice trembled. Someone tried to kill you. He nodded slowly. And they nearly succeeded. She covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. Why would anyone? I don't know, he said, running a hand through his hair. But whoever it was, they knew what they were doing. That night sleep didn't come. Edith lay awake beside him, watching the shadows flicker across the ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes she saw the fire, the flames, the smoke, the terror. But now she saw something else too, betrayal. She turned to him. You think someone from your own team? I don't want to believe it, he said. But the evidence, it points to that. He looked at her, his voice raw. I almost died that night, Edith. And now I know someone wanted it that way. The next day, Liam went back to the station, determined to find answers. He spent hours reviewing files, reports, photos, until something caught his eye. A maintenance log. The night before the fire. The person who last checked his oxygen tank. Mark Bennett. Liam's stomach twisted. No, that can't be right. He rushed to the chief's office. Chief. The fingerprints. Did they ever confirm who they belonged to? The chief hesitated, then nodded. Yes. They matched Mark Bennett. Liam went still. His best friend. His fallen brother. The man he had tried to save. He whispered. Mark, what did you do? Back home, Edith was setting the table when he walked in. Pale, shaken, broken. Liam, she said, heart racing. What happened? He sank into a chair, his voice hollow. It was Mark. He cut the line. She froze. Mark. But why? Liam looked up, eyes glassy. He wasn't trying to kill me. He was trying to end his own life. He'd been struggling, hiding it from everyone. That night, when the fire broke out, he didn't want to make it out alive. Edith's hand flew to her mouth, tears spilling instantly. Oh my God! He went in knowing, Liam whispered. Knowing he wouldn't come back. The truth hit her like a wave, heavy, tragic, unchangeable. And when I found him, Liam said, his voice breaking. He looked at me and said, Don't save me, Liam. Save the boy. I thought he was delirious. I thought he wanted me to hurry. But he meant it. He wanted me to leave him. He dropped his face into his hands, shaking. I didn't fail him, Edith. I respected his last wish. She knelt beside him, cupping his face gently. You didn't fail him. You saved someone who still had a chance. Mark, he made his choice. He met her eyes, red, broken, human. I've lived with guilt all this time. And it was never mine to carry. She leaned forward, kissing his forehead softly. Then let it go. All of it. The next morning, Liam attended Mark's memorial wall at the station. He stood there quietly, placing a hand on his name. "Rest easy, brother," he whispered. "I finally understand." Behind him, Edith watched, tears glistening in her eyes, her heart full of both pain and pride. That night, as they returned home, the world felt lighter somehow. The ghosts had been faced. The fire inside them, both the pain and the passion, had found peace. Liam turned to her, his voice soft. "You stayed through the worst of me." She smiled faintly. "That's what love does. It doesn't run from fire. It learns to walk through it." He smiled, pulling her close. "Then let's never stop walking." As they kissed, the camera pulled back. The same house that once echoed with silence now glowing with light, warmth, and love reborn from ashes. But just as the screen began to fade, a single photo frame on the shelf rattled, and a faint flicker of smoke curled up from the fireplace. 'Cause sometimes, the fire never really sleeps. They say once the fire is gone, all that's left is ash. But sometimes the ashes remember. The night was calm, too calm. Edith and Liam were curled up on the couch, the faint crackle of the fireplace filling the room. For the first time in years, peace felt possible. Liam's arm was around her. Her head rested against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. It was steady, alive, real. But peace has a way of breaking when you least expect it. A knock echoed through the house. Sharp, urgent. Liam frowned. "It's almost midnight. Who could that be?" Edith sat up uneasy. He opened the door and froze. Standing there was Sarah Bennett, drenched in rain, eyes wild with fear. "Sarah?" Liam asked, confused. "What are you?" She pushed past him, trembling. "I didn't know where else to go." Edith rose slowly. "What's wrong?" Sarah looked between them, her voice shaking. "You need to know the truth. About the fire." Liam stiffened. "I already know. Mark's death." "No," she cut in. "You don't. Mark wasn't alone that night." The words sliced through the air like lightning. Liam's pulse raced. "What are you talking about?" Sarah reached into her coat, pulling out a small flash drive. "Mark left me this. He told me to give it to you if anything ever happened to him." Liam took it, his hands trembling. "What's on it?" "A recording," she whispered. "From his helmet cam." Minutes later, the three of them sat in front of the laptop, the screen glowing in the dark. The footage flickered, smoke, fire, chaos. Mark's heavy breathing filled the room. He was inside the warehouse, flashlight cutting through thick smoke. Voice, faint but unmistakable. "It's done. The oxygen line's cut. He won't make it out." Liam's heart stopped. That wasn't Mark's voice. The camera turned, catching a shadowed figure in gear, the badge on his shoulder glinting in the light. Captain Harris. Liam's old commanding officer. "No," Liam whispered. "That's impossible." Sarah nodded, tears spilling. Mark found out Harris was running illegal supply trades, selling leftover rescue equipment. He threatened to report him. That night, Harris set up the fire to cover his tracks. Mark tried to stop him. Edith covered her mouth, horrified. So Mark didn't want to die. He was murdered. Liam clenched his fists, rage burning through him. "And I walked straight into his trap." He stood abruptly, pacing. "I have to take this to the department." Sarah nodded. "Be careful. Harris has friends in high places." Later that night, after Sarah left, Liam sat quietly beside Edith, the storm raging outside again. She reached for his hand. "You can't do this alone." He looked at her, eyes dark with determination. "I won't. Not this time." He kissed her forehead softly. "Stay inside tomorrow. No matter what." But deep down she knew, when Liam walked into danger, she could never just stay behind. The next day, Liam went to the station with a flash drive. Harris was there, calm, smiling, unaware that his past was about to catch up. "Sinclair," Harris said. "Good to see you. I heard about your clearance. Congratulations." Liam's jaw tightened. "Save it. I know what you did." Harris's smile faded. "Watch your words, son." Liam placed the flash drive on the desk. "The camera doesn't lie." For a second, the captain's mask slipped. His eyes went cold. "You should have stayed quiet, Liam." And before Liam could react, Harris lunged. The fight was sudden, brutal. Two firefighters, fists crashing, old wounds reopening. The office shattered around them. Glass, papers, chaos. Just as Harris reached for the drawer, the gun, a voice shouted. "Liam!" "Edith." She stood at the doorway, terrified but fierce. "Stop!" Harris turned, startled. That was all Liam needed. One punch, sharp and final. Harris fell unconscious. Sirens wailed outside. The chief and officers stormed in, guns drawn. Within minutes, Harris was in cuffs, the flash drive evidence sealing his fate. Hours later, as dawn broke, Liam and Edith stood outside the station. The sky glowed gold, rain-washed and quiet. He turned to her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You shouldn't have come." She smiled faintly. "You know I never listen." He chuckled softly, his voice breaking. "You could have been hurt." She touched his chest gently. "So could you. But you weren't. And I won't ever let you walk through the fire alone again." He looked at her, really looked, and saw everything he had been fighting for. Not glory. Not redemption. Just her. Weeks later, life began to breathe again. Harris was behind bars. Sarah moved away to raise her child in peace. And Liam? He was reinstated, not as a man haunted by guilt, but as a hero finally free. One evening, as the sun dipped low, he and Edith walked along the beach, hand in hand, waves brushing their feet. "You ever think," she said softly, "how everything started with a misunderstanding?" He smiled. "And ended with the truth." She laughed gently. "Guess we had to walk through fire to find each other." He stopped, turning her toward him, eyes filled with warmth. "Then let's promise one thing," he said. "If we ever lose our way again," she finished for him, smiling, "we'll light it up together." He leaned in, their foreheads touching, the ocean wind wrapping around them like a secret. And as they kissed, slow, deep, and full of everything they had survived, the world around them blurred into gold and flame. Sometimes love doesn't start with sparks, it starts with ashes. Because only when everything burns down, do you see what truly remains. And for Edith and Liam, it was simple. They were never the fire's victims. They were its soul. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join us for more stories of love, loss, and redemption. Comment below. Do you believe in second chances in love? See you in next video.